Wow, wow. Tyson Fury knocks out Deontay Wilder in the 11th round. Unbelievable fight. Hats off to Tyson Fury. Hats off to Deontay Wilder for the heart he showed, even though it ended up being another loss to Tyson Fury. What did you guys think about the fight? Were you surprised by the manner in which Tyson Fury knocked out Deontay Wilder? Were you surprised by the fact that Wilder was able to drop Tyson Fury? What is your general take on this fight? Let me know what you guys are saying on this one. I'll just quickly break it down for you, man. The fight started. Deontay Wilder did start, shooting those right hands to the body, hitting, left hands, right hands to the body, just like, one of his trainers did say that they're going to be trying to get a body attack going. And, in the very first round, Deontay Wilder did have, quite a bit of success there, and I would say that Deontay Wilder won the very first round. The second round came about, Deontay was kind of more of like an even kind of round, so to speak. I'm just coming off the fight now. I probably have to rewatch it just to get a little bit more glimpse into it. But the main key points of this fight, Deontay Wilder in the third round dropped again by, I think it looked like another shot, on that equilibrium point. And I said in my previous analysis video of the rematch that Deontay Wilder needs to get those defense on point, and particularly when he's on the ropes. He should be slipping on the ropes either to the left or to the right to evade, Tyson Fury, throwing these shots, because on multiple occasions Tyson Fury was able to get right hands off, get big hooks off on Deontay Wilder on the ropes, and even when he ended up getting knocked out in the 11th round, it was on the ropes again, and Wilder ended up getting knocked out cold on the canvas. So it wasn't really great defending, their defensive skills from Deontay Wilder. And a lot of people did say that, if Deontay Wilder gets clipped or if he gets hurt, will he revert back to type? Will he, revert back to what he normally does? And pretty much that's what happened. The jab completely disappeared. All this set the traps and feints and decoys and all this stuff that Malik Scott was talking about, I didn't see it. It became a, swing for the fences. But the fourth round came about. I thought Deontay Wilder was going to be in a lot of devastating trouble, but he was able to get a knockdown against Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury just didn't judge the distance very well, and Deontay Wilder was able to let off a short, right hand, at close range to, buckle Tyson Fury, shook to his boots momentarily, and down went Tyson Fury. And then I think he got dropped again in the same round by a shot. I can't remember if it was back of the head, but he did get dropped again. And, I thought, wow, Deontay Wilder's kind of like, back into this fight. He's back into the mix, but the fight ended up being a similar carbon copy to the rematch. Deontay Wilder ended up sustaining a beating until round 11. And the only real difference between this fight and the rematch was that Deontay Wilder got a knockdown on Tyson Fury. He started the first round a bit better, and Mark Breland wasn't there to throw in the towel and save Deontay Wilder from a devastating knockout, which is what happened to Deontay Wilder in this fight. Now we can see what Mark Breland was trying to do to help Deontay Wilder in the rematch. He didn't want to see Wilder get knocked out flat on the canvas. He knew it was going to happen. And people be trying to criticize Mark Breland, especially some people from Wilder's camp. How can you criticize a man that didn't want you to be knocked out cold like this? Because we don't know, the kind of bearings this is going to have on Deontay Wilder. Obviously, we want him to be, healthy and safe, but we don't know what bearings this is having on his, his ability, his durability, potentially in future fights. That's if he wants to even continue. This is why trainers save fighters from themselves. All this, going out on what are you talking about? Wilder wasn't. I said immediately after that third round, Wilder, obviously, I think, okay, Wilder's back in it. And then I started to see Wilder get a beating from, round 5 and round 6, where he was taking punishment. I said it's a matter of time before Deontay Wilder gets stopped. But hats off to Deontay Wilder, though. Immense heart that this man showed. He was out, down and out. He was still throwing right hands, caught Fury a couple times, but he just didn't have the legs or the leverage to really let off these shots, to really cause, really put a dent in Tyson Fury, to really get him to knock him out. I don't think, I said it, I said the 238 pounds, the weight started to show, because Deontay Wilder's not a naturally heavy man like that. carrying a lot of weight. He got slow. He didn't have the agility. He didn't have the speed. He just didn't have it. He just didn't have it there, and it just carbon copy the fight, a couple minute differences from the rematch. And I just feel like Tyson Fury is just a better fighter. It's as simple as that. It's not like you know Wilder didn't. He's just a better fighter. Wilder didn't have. He's not enough time to get these skills ingrained. You see what Alexander Usyk is doing? What did to AJ? The lateral movement, the feints, and things like that. That is being groomed into Alexander Usyk for years. Amateur fights, Olympic Games, cruiserweight, fighting multiple fights. You know, this is stuff that is ingrained in someone like Alexander Usyk. Tyson Fury, the same. You know, this is not something you could just get done in a couple of months, because when the going gets tough, I said Deontay Wilder's gonna. I said if Deontay Wilder in my pre-fight video, I said if Deontay Wilder reverts back to what he did before, there's a very good chance that Tyson Fury is just gonna win the fight. By KO or by unanimous decision. And some people would say that Deontay Wilder looked better in this fight than in the second fight. He looked better in the first round. He looked better in the fact that he was able to get a knockdown, but his technical deficiencies, his defensive deficiencies was really telling. He didn't know when he caught Fury, and AJ will be looking for hooks. Why didn't have no hooks? Why was looking for right hand? There's just not enough tools. Like the tools that Malik Scott was in the toolbox, the tools didn't come out of the toolbox. It was just really, really, a beatdown from Tyson Fury. But Deontay Wilder has got the heart. That's one thing you can't take away from Deontay Wilder. He's a fighter. He's got the heart. He's not willing, he's willing to just keep throwing shots to try and find a way to win, which is a credit to him. But Tyson Fury is just a different level, man. Completely different levels, completely different ability. Just the chin, the shots just did do nothing, man. They just couldn't do anything. And, the 11th round came about, and Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury put the shots together. Big left hand, right hand, on Deontay Wilder, and Deontay Wilder straight down to the canvas, and man, that was really brutal, devastating knockout. That's how Wilder normally knocks people out. Unbelievable to see Deontay Wilder knocked out, stretched and knocked out like that, man. It's just terrible. See Deontay Wilder, knocked out in that kind of fashion, but where does Deontay Wilder go from here? Some of these kind of fights where it's very brutal and very taking punishment, they can mess up fighters, man. Your durability is gone. Some people can get washed overnight. Are there still big fights out there for Deontay Wilder? AJ, especially if AJ maybe loses to Usyk or Dylan White, or a domestic fight against Andy Ruiz, that's still an option as well. These are options for Deontay Wilder, but he's gonna have to come through with a lot of mental recovery, because the excuses that they came up with for the reasons, like people are saying why Wilder didn't win the fight, they're no longer valid. Like Wilder got beaten again in similar fashion, if not worse, because Mark Breeder wasn't able there to stop the fight. So it's not about the suit. Wilder didn't even wear a suit. It's not the suit. It's none of this. He went there, and unfortunately he just didn't have the technical and defensive abilities to be able to deal with Tyson Fury. It's just too rudimentary. One right hand, and there was nothing else to show. But hats off to Tyson Fury. I don't think Tyson Fury was the sharpest he's been. I think in fact the rematch Tyson Fury was better. It's much better than this Tyson Fury we saw, but it was still enough to beat Deontay Wilder. A sharper Tyson Fury probably not going to get caught by that right hand that Wilder was able to land. And get buzzed a couple times. But hats off to both men. Tyson Fury beats Deontay Wilder not by towel this time, by right hand knockout, straight devastating fashion. Tyson Fury benefiting from that Kronk Gym, Sugar Hill, whatever they've got going there, it's been working wonders for him, because Tyson Fury, not known as a punch, these shots he's landing on Wilder, devastating effect, and also Deontay Wilder probably maybe still affected by the beating he took in the first fight, in the rematch, and I don't know how Deontay Wilder is going to be dealing with fights after this. That's if he wants to continue. As I mentioned, there's still some couple fights there people may want to see, but getting beaten by Tyson Fury like that is, with the ego Wilder's got, the bronze bomber and all this kind of stuff, it's just a tough one, man. But Hats off to both men. Hats off to Tyson Fury. Fantastic victory, devastating fashion. KO win. Is Tyson Fury? Do we want to see Tyson Fury versus Usyk or maybe AJ? You know, I feel like AJ's got more better tools into fighting Tyson Fury than a rudimentary one knockout. It's one right hand Deontay Wilder. You know, that shot that Wilder landed, if AJ was able to catch through that, I feel like he just got better tools to unleash the hooks, the uppercut to really cause Tyson Fury more problems. But people are gonna definitely be leaning to Tyson Fury as a favorite against Anthony Joshua. Usyk, a very tricky fight for Tyson Fury, a smaller man. Tyson Fury notoriously struggle with these smaller fighters. Otto Wallin, people like Otto Wallin and what's his name? What's the name of this guy that Tyson Fury fought? That he overhand right. I've forgotten his name now, but you guys know who I'm talking about. The overhand right landed and put Steve Cunningham. That's the one. Put Tyson Fury down. So Usyk, a very technically gifted fighter. A lot of those jabs, right hands, may not be landing on Usyk so flush. So it's a very tricky fight for Tyson Fury in terms of Alexander Usyk. But this is obviously a fight that I want to see. And if AJ Usyk, I don't mind. I'd like to see all these top fights. But it's going to be interesting to see the landscape of the heavyweight division. Obviously, the WBC mentioned that Dillian White, is up there for the mandatory. Tyson Fury gonna have to fight Dillian White. I highly rate Tyson Fury to really beat Dillian White. White hasn't got the technical. I just see Tyson Fury beating him. As long as Tyson Fury's up for it, I believe if he beats Dillian White. But let's see what happens, man. Hats off to both men. Hats off to Tyson. Hats off to Wilder first. For the heart he showed, staying in there. Unfortunately, didn't get the win. Deontay Wilder, where does he go from here? Tyson Fury did it again. Drew the first fight, won the second fight, won the trilogy, moving on to the next thing. But hats off to both men though for a tremendous performance. Drop your comments in the comment section below. What do you think about this fight? What is your reaction to this? Do you think where do you think Deontay Wilder goes from here? Do you want to see Wild Fury fight Usyk or fight Anthony Joshua? Let's see what happens, man.